hear me when I say this. If your nonprofit is not in the financial shape to potentially absorb a loss by doing an event, then you shouldn't try to do one. Here's what you do instead. Focus that energy on growing individual donor relationships. Welcome to the Nonprofit Launch Plan podcast for startups, small and growing nonprofits. This podcast exists to help you build your nonprofit from the ground up on a strong foundation. So in every episode, we give you the frameworks and the tools and the personalized guidance that you need to be able to create lasting impact. My name is Matt Stockman. I'm a nonprofit growth coach, and I'm thrilled you're here. At Nonprofit Launch Plan, we believe that every nonprofit has to be operating at peak performance in 6 key areas in order to be successful. Those areas are leadership, fundraising, marketing, programs and services, operations, and finances. So on every episode of the podcast, we talk about a topic that is core to at least one of those 6 areas. And on today's episode, we're talking about 5 fundraising practices that drain your nonprofit's energy. These are common traps that I see new and growing organizations fall into really quickly and easily. They look like good ideas at first, and they're actually not bad ideas, but early on, they just end up burning time, exhausting you and your team, and keeping your organization from actual real progress. But the good news is for each one of these 5 fundraising practices that drain your energy, I'm going to share a healthier alternative that will help you fundraise more effectively without wasting your time or your team's limited energy. Now, before we dive in, fundraising, obviously a core pain point for just about every nonprofit leader and nonprofit organization in some way or another, but fundraising is the lifeblood to what you do. Without fuel in the engine, your car can't go anyplace. And without fuel in your bank account, your nonprofit isn't a nonprofit and can't help make the world a better place. Most of us get into nonprofit work because you've seen a problem in the world and you felt compelled in some way to do something about it. But the part about asking other people to give you money to help solve that problem, that's when the cold beads of sweat start to form on your forehead. And that's why I've created the Fearless Fundraising Framework. It's a simple 5-step process that gives you clarity on your fundraising messaging and a game plan on how to share your mission and vision and invite people to partner with you. You can get the Fearless Fundraising Workbook and the videos that go along with it. It's all absolutely free. On my website right now, go to nonprofitlaunchplan.com to get yours. So let's dive in. Here's 5 common fundraising practices that can drain your nonprofit's energy, your team's energy, and then how to avoid them. Or if you've already fallen into the trap, how do you get out and what to do instead? And why does this even matter? Well, more than money, the most limited resource that you have is bandwidth and capacity. So as a nonprofit coach, if I was coaching you, I'm going to do all that I can to help you narrow, focus your energy and effort, streamline your processes, and make sure that you're putting your best energy on only the things that make the most sense and have the best chance for return. Now, we all know this kind of work and how it can go at times. Even when you do all that, you can and will have days that you feel like you work hard all day, and at the end of the day, you feel like you've taken 4 steps backward instead of 1 step forward. Those days are going to happen from time to time, no matter what. But as a coach, I'm going to do my best to help you focus and prioritize so that those 4-step backwards days don't happen so frequently. Much of the work that I do with nonprofits starts with helping leaders like you realize where they're essentially kind of spinning their wheels, working on programs and initiatives that are high activity and low reward, or are just evidence of working harder but not working smarter. And that's what today's episode is all about. So practice number 1 that can really drain your nonprofit's energy is relying only on events for fundraising. A lot of small nonprofits believe that fundraising equals events like banquets and golf tournaments and silent auctions and galas and so on and so forth. The problem with all that is events take a massive amount of time, volunteers, and money. It's a huge energy drain, and the return is usually pretty small. I've seen organizations spend 6 months planning an event that netted just a few $1,000s. And I would argue that for a small nonprofit with a nimble staff trying to be as streamlined and laser focused as possible, that's just not the best use of your time or your team's time. Now, events can be extremely lucrative for nonprofits, so I'm not saying we're never going to do them. But the reality with events, though, is that they take way longer to plan than you think they will. They often require a lot of cost up front to execute. And their best fundraising power, and this is the most important part, the best fundraising power in most events is in 5 years. Meaning, if you start doing an annual golf tournament now, for example, you should plan on hopefully maybe breaking even or maybe netting a few grand for the first few years, and hopefully by around year 5, you really start to see the financial benefit of it. It's a really long runway. Hear me when I say this. If your nonprofit is not in the financial shape to potentially absorb a loss by doing an event, then you shouldn't try to do one. Here's what you do instead. Focus that energy on growing individual donor relationships. If you're going to spend 20 hours this month dreaming up and starting to plan your first ever big event, I'm going to recommend that instead you should invest those 20 hours in identifying 20 to 30 people who already believe in your mission, sit down and have coffee with them, share stories about your impact, and ask for their support. Relationships build long-term giving. Events rarely do. Instead of investing 20 hours in dreaming up and starting to plan your first ever big event, invest those 20 hours in building relationships with people who already believe in your mission. All right, so that's number 1. Moving on, fundraising practice number 2 that can drain you and your nonprofit's energy is chasing grant money too early. Now, let me clarify a couple of definitions, because I had a nonprofit leader who was brand new in his journey ask some really basic questions, and I was like, I don't want to assume knowledge on anyone's part. In nonprofit fundraising, you'll hear people talk about foundations and foundational giving and grants and so on and so forth. Let me just make sure you're clear on what that is. A foundation, when I say foundation, I'm talking about an organization that exists primarily to give money away to support causes and nonprofits. A foundation might be a private one, like one funded by a wealthy family or an individual, or they might be corporate foundations that companies set up as part of their charitable giving, and their main job is to manage the money that's been set aside for philanthropy and then award it to nonprofits that align with their mission. A grant, on the other hand, that is basically the gift of money that you get from a foundation, a government agency, even a corporate foundation, to help fund your programs or operations. But there is a key difference between a grant and individual donations. Grants usually come after a long application process, reporting requirements, and sometimes a lot of restrictions on how the money can be used. It's not that you're just writing checks randomly. You have to be able to demonstrate your need, your plan, and your impact in order to even be considered to get a grant from a foundation. So again, practice number 2 that can drain your nonprofit's energy is spending too much time and energy and focus too early on chasing this grant money. Grants feel like a great option, and they are, but there is a tremendous opportunity cost because the application process can be pretty labor intensive. So much so that larger nonprofits will have an individual or two, or sometimes a whole department that is typically just focused solely on creating and submitting the applications to different foundations and organizations for grants. So chances are, if you're listening to this podcast, you don't have the time for that. And also, I just read some research this week that is showing that more and more foundations are changing their application process to be invite only, meaning if your nonprofit would like to apply for a grant from a particular foundation, you'll have to be invited first by them to apply. The impact of this on you as the leader of your nonprofit is that if you don't have a relationship, or you don't have a well-documented and publicized track record and the systems and data that those foundation funders are going to want, getting invites is going to be a whole lot harder, and applying too early is just a waste of time and can get really discouraging. So what do you do instead? Rather, spend your energy getting your house in order first. Build a solid base of individual donors, a few business partners, put systems in place to track outcomes, and then pursue grants strategically when you can show results. If you spend some time growing relationships with people inside those foundations, but only the foundations that really align with your mission, with a plan that one day down the road, those relationships are going to produce meaningful financial results, that's a wise investment. Grants should supplement your fundraising, not be your lifeline. Hear me when I say that again. I know too many nonprofits where 75, 80, 90% of their budget is based on one or two big grants that they get every year. Well, if the leadership structure inside the foundations that award those grants changes, their mission focus changes, all of a sudden, they're coming to you at the end of the year going, next year, hey, we're moving in a different direction. And you're now dealing with the fact that 75 to 80 to 90% of your budget is going away like that. So I'll say it again, grants should be a supplement to your fundraising. They cannot be a lifeline. So that's number 2. Fundraising practice number 3 that can drain you and your nonprofit's energy is constantly chasing more donors. I can hear you right now saying, but we need more donors. Like, we're struggling to make the budget work. And what I see in a lot of nonprofits is that they are so focused on pursuing new donors that you're neglecting the donors you already have. And working tirelessly on getting new donors at the expense of caring for the ones you already have is a miss and a colossal energy drain. It's tempting to believe that the answer to your fundraising struggles is just more donors. So you spend a huge amount of time trying to meet new people, expand your mailing list, boost your social media reach. Those are all well and good, but the problem with all of that is all of it is very time consuming. And when we're measuring effort against return, the numbers can get out of whack really quickly. And here's why. Acquiring a new donor can cost 5 to 10 times more effort than keeping an existing donor engaged. I'll say it again. Acquiring a new donor can cost 5 to 10 times more effort than keeping an existing donor engaged. And if you're not caring for the donors you already have, they are slipping away while you're chasing the next prospect. So what do you do instead? Put your best energy into caring for and nurturing the donors you already have. In fact, if you're not able to do anything else related to fundraising on a particular day, do that. If you've got an hour to devote to development work and you feel overwhelmed, spend the hour working on building out a consistent communication plan with your existing donors, even if you've only got 5 of them. Communicate consistently, share your impact stories, show gratitude. Loyal donors who feel connected, they're going to keep giving and often will increase their giving, which is going to save you all kinds of time and energy compared to always starting fresh. So the takeaway is this. There's an old saying, maybe it's from a song, I don't actually remember, that says essentially, stick with the one who brought you to the dance. New donor cultivation, it is important, it does matter, and you should devote time to it every week. But first, build in processes and rhythms into your day or week that are solely for growing the relationship with the people who are already giving to you. Don't chase new donors at the expense of caring for your existing donors. All right, fundraising practice number 4 that can drain your nonprofit's energy, it's using weak messaging. This probably should have been number 1 on my list because I see it absolutely so often. The vast majority of small, and actually a lot of large nonprofits too, struggle because either the messaging about exactly what you do and who it's for isn't clear. So a donor doesn't give because they're just not sure what they're giving to. So appeals feel vague and uninspiring. Think of it this way. If there's a tree in your backyard that is growing close to your house, and everybody says you need to get that cut down, and we're going old school here, so we've got to cut the tree down with an axe. A rusty, dull axe that has never been sharpened will take you hours to cut the tree down because the axe is actually just more like a sledgehammer because it's so dull. But an axe with a super sharp blade that you take the time to sharpen right before you start to take the tree down, you can cut that tree down relatively easily. If you have a fundraising message that's too wordy, has too many facts and figures in it, it's too long, it's too vague, it's kind of like that dull axe, which is more like a sledgehammer. It won't cut through, and you'll expend massive energy getting that message out and not see the sort of results that you want to see. If a donor can't quickly understand why your mission is important and what their gift is going to accomplish, they're going to tune out. So what do you do instead? Spend time now really fine-tuning and honing your messaging. The Fearless Fundraising mini course that I talked about at the beginning of the podcast, it's a great resource to help you get clear on your mission and your messaging. You can develop a clear case for support in 1 or 2 sentences, explain the problem that you solve and who you solve the problem for, how your nonprofit is the solution, and the specific impact a gift makes. All right, fundraising practice number 5, last one here, that can drain your nonprofit's energy: chasing big single gifts and neglecting recurring giving. Most nonprofits chase these big one-time gifts, typically putting sort of a dollar amount on funding a particular project. Let's say, for example, it's going to cost $10,000 to complete this project, and then going after 1 or 2 people who can cover the cost of the project, all the while ignoring the power of recurring donations. If all of your fundraising efforts are focused on getting people to make single gifts in order to fuel specific projects, what you will end up creating is a very hand-to-mouth existence. Think about this in your own life. If you had to get up every morning, figure out what it would take to provide for your family for that day, and then go find work to get the money, then spend the money and bring it all home at the end of the day, the whole process would be exhausting. But in a lot of ways, we manage nonprofit funds that way. Without steady, predictable revenue, you're always going to be scrambling. So what do you do instead? Create a monthly giving program, even if it's small at first. Invite donors to join, like your Sustainers Circle or your Impact Partners, for $10 or $25 or $50 a month. Regular giving, it creates stability, helps you be able to plan ahead, budget well, and actually deepens donors' commitment. Okay, so to recap real quickly, here's the 5 fundraising practices that can really drain you, your team, and your nonprofit's energy. 1, relying too much on events. Build relationships instead. 2, don't chase grants too early. Build systems and donors first. 3, don't chase new donors at the expense of the donors you already have. Devote plenty of time to cultivating and deepening the relationships that you already have with people who believe in what you do. Number 4, make sure your messaging is sharp. No weak messaging. Be clear, honest, and specific. And number 5, don't neglect the idea of recurring giving, and create stability with a foundation of monthly donors. Avoiding these 5 energy-draining practices is going to free you up to focus on what really works and set your nonprofit up for healthier, more sustainable fundraising. Now, before we wrap up this episode, if there is somebody in your atmosphere that you know is still in the dreaming phase of launching a nonprofit, if it's you or somebody you know, I've got a special freebie for you. It's a PDF resource called From Dream to Action, Your Nonprofit Pre-Launch Checklist, 10 Essential Steps for Moving from Nonprofit Idea to Impact. It's 10 things to think about as you start to crystallize your dream for a nonprofit. This tool is going to take you through 10 easy first steps to move your dream for a nonprofit towards a launch plan that will actually get your dream off the ground. It's a checklist that walks you through your why, considering who your first teammates are, in other words, your board, honing in on exactly who your beneficiary is, choosing your nonprofit's name, your IRS application, and more. And there's an easy-to-do action step for each of the 10 things to consider, so you're going to feel like you're making some forward progress. It's going to bring your dream for your nonprofit into a much clearer focus when you've completed it. So if you want the free PDF, it's called From Dream to Action, Your Nonprofit Pre-Launch Checklist, 10 Essential Steps for Moving from Nonprofit Idea to Impact. Email me at matt@nonprofitlaunchplan.com, matt@nonprofitlaunchplan.com, or look for the pop-out on my website at nonprofitlaunchplan.com. Don't forget about the other free resource, too. I mentioned it earlier in the podcast, the Fearless Fundraising mini course. It's a workbook and 5 short videos that go along with it that take the fear out of asking other people to partner with you financially. You go through the mini course, you come out with a game plan and a fundraising messaging script. It's great. It's absolutely free for you on the website, at nonprofitlaunchplan.com. Again, thank you so much for listening. That's all for today's episode of the Nonprofit Launch Plan podcast for startups, small and growing nonprofits. Thanks for being here. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on the next episode. And if you found this helpful, please share it with another nonprofit leader who you think might benefit. Until next time, keep making a difference.